Hello. Welcome to training 3. We are talking about cultivating conscious chemistry. And this is part of the global training series, Paving the Way to Soul Love, how singles and couples find and create soul partnerships. I am Joanna Shakti, the Soul Love Mentor, and I am honored beyond honored to be on this journey with you, to be stepping into our 3rd week of training and this path of soul love and its journey for you, your unique journey of soul love will unfold magically and beautifully if you take those steps, if you decide to walk that path that honors your soul, that honors your heart, that honors your body and your spirit. So thank you for joining me. As I said, I'm honored to be spending another evening with you. Cultivating conscious chemistry. It's a juicy topic that we are up to tonight, and it's a topic that I can tell you most men and women get shocked by. And there's several different dynamics that we're going to talk about, several different pieces that will come into bringing out the sexy, attractive, passionate, hot you. And it doesn't matter what your body looks like. It doesn't matter what your past is. What matters is that you discover how to be you and show up now. To show up as the genuine, authentic, ecstatically authentic you. And if that phrase doesn't mean anything to you, that's okay. We've talked about it in the previous trainings. We'll talk about it some more tonight. But suffice it to say that ecstatically authentic is living life in a way that feels so good. And as you'll hear in a bit, it's where confidence becomes so natural that you don't even have to figure out how to be confident. You just are. So let me bring my slides up for you, and we are going to dive in because I have tonight packed full of juicy information that you can start using in this moment. So with that, let me bring my slides up. And again, we are in the global training series, Paving the Way to Soul Love. And we are in training 3. So we're talking about training 3 tonight, cultivating conscious chemistry, where the heart and sex unite and passion sizzles. And I love this idea of where heart and sex unite and we have so many concepts of what that means. And I know that men and women think about that differently. But what you're going to discover tonight is why it's so important for the two to come together. And that's what ignites the passion. So we're also going to set up a few other pieces that keep it sizzling hot. And so there's spark and then there's not. And what happens? So if you've experienced those relationships or the dates that for a few dates, it feels like there's some chemistry, but then something happens, or more commonly, it's a few months down the road or a few years down the road, or it's before you ever get to the date and you end up in that friend zone, if you will. And so we're going to talk about the spark tonight. I am Joanna Shakti, the Soul Love Mentor. And again, it is my honor to dance with you around the world as we talk about these juicy, intimate, vulnerable, real, fun, and sometimes downright scary topics. So you are in the right place for this training if you're a great man or woman. But not everybody sees, and I say not everybody, but you're not recognized. You're not seen for how great you are. It's like you feel like you're putting out your best self and you feel like you're doing the right thing. And you don't get the response you want. He doesn't respond. She doesn't respond. Why? So if you know that you've got that greatness, and I can tell you, I don't feel great all the time. So even if you don't think you're great all the time, you know that you're worth it. And if you don't know that you're worth it, then you're in the right place too, because you are worth it. And it's so important to know that. You get to see all the others. You're in the right place. If you see those other couples, those dates, those men, those women that you feel like they've got it going on, but you don't feel like you can get it going on, like there's that, like he's got it, but I don't, or she's living it, but I'm not. So you're in the right place because you've got it. If orgasms, we'll get right to it. If orgasms have been elusive for you or for your partner, you're in the right place. If you know you felt like sex is good, or maybe it hasn't been so good, either way, you feel like you know there's more to this that I haven't discovered, you're in the right place. If you're not getting enough, and I don't care what enough is, enough might be you're not getting enough sex. Enough might be you're not getting enough attention or affection. You might not feel like there's enough intimacy. You might feel like it's all about sex and not about love, or you might feel like it's all about love and it's not enough about sex. So if any part of you in your romantic life feels like you're not getting enough, this is for you. And if you've been frustrated with the opposite sex, especially for those of you in heterosexual relationships, this is the place to be. We're not going to get to talk about all the examples of the differences between men and women, but we're certainly going to begin that conversation tonight. And I can tell you it's an important one because we are absolutely different. So what am I talking about tonight? In this training, we're going to talk about why way too many relationships don't have that spark, that it fizzles, that it fades. We're going to talk about the relationship evolution and why and how it has neutralized the chemistry in our relationships and what to do about it. We're going to talk about how the opposite sex can drive you crazy and turn you on all at the same time and why that's actually important. We're going to talk about the friend and the roommate zone. We're going to get real about what causes it and how to stay out of it. We're going to talk about why equal, and we'll talk about what that means, but why equal marriages usually aren't the most fulfilling marriages and definitely not the most passionate. We're going to talk about how masculine and feminine energy must play together. We're going to explain what are those. We're going to get real. And then how they play together to ignite the passion and the love and the trust. We're going to talk about actually more than 3 secrets. We're going to talk about the secrets of a woman's orgasm and the truth about soul sex. So that's what we're up to. And as you've probably experienced or may have experienced on my other trainings, you know I pack them full. And there is so much more that I want to give you. So at the end or later in the conversation, I will also share with you, if you want more, how to get it. So with that, let's dive in. And I always like to share a bit about why I do what I do and why this topic's important to me. And again, if you've joined me before, you've heard some of this, but gosh, when it comes to sex and chemistry and polarity, man, it was flat for me. I grew up in the heart of the women's movement. I grew up with the first divorced family on the block, and I was bound and determined, because I also grew up in the heart of the 70s. And I was going to be that strong, powerful woman. And I had this image of what that meant. And I had an image of what I could do and what I should do and what I couldn't do. And I also, because of watching a lot of the relationship dynamics in my family, I also decided that I would never depend on a man. Well, I changed that decision many years ago for the good, but back then, like, depending on a man seemed like a crazy idea. And I know for some of you, it probably still seems crazy. And I'll share with you a bit about why we can choose it and how dependence and interdependence have evolved through this relationship evolution. But for me, there was all of this macho, like, I'm an electrical engineer by degree. I've been out of the corporate world for over 15 years. But back in my days in the corporate world, I was in oil and gas and high tech with the good old boys in Houston, Texas in the 90s. I wore the suits with shoulder pads. I had the button down shirts and the khaki pants. Like, I fit in. And I had to make sure that I could outman those men. And then I wondered why I was divorced from Prince Charming. And he really was. He was an amazing man. He, in truth, wasn't the right man for me, but man, he was Prince Charming. And we were divorced 4 years later. And we didn't have much sex in those 4 years. And then I started dating, and I'm like, why do I keep meeting all the sexually inhibited men? And what's wrong with them? And why can't we get hot and passionate? Why don't they go deep with me? And then I realized it was never them. It was me. And those were the things, those were the pains, the aches in my heart that propelled me on a journey to study male-female dynamics, the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, to dive in and become an advanced certified tantric educator, facilitating and sharing the power and the passion of sacred sexuality and sacred sensuality, and how those transform both our relationships, but our whole lives. Because this sensuality and this sexuality is part of our life force. And we want it's so important to bring that truth of who we are as men, as women. And we'll talk about that this doesn't matter with orientation or gender, but it's who we are as beings and that expression of our sensuality and our sexuality that's going to be so important tonight. So that's why I do what I do, because I know what it's like when it doesn't work. And it's always an opportunity to go deeper, to have more passion, to have more pleasure, to have more chemistry, to have more depth and union. I love the idea and the feeling of where does that one body end and the other begin? So this is what we're up to. I want to stop and talk about the path of soul love. And we're really talking about all 3 steps, if you will, in that journey, in this training. We're talking about how you walk your path and unite with others, and then eventually, for most, a beloved that you spend your life with. And this is a journey of not just how good is it in bed, it's not just how much do we love each other, but the truth is this path of soul love is one that brings out the full expression of you, where your soul, the essence of you, lives fully, lives ecstatically, loves deeply, loves ecstatically, connects on the deepest levels of your body, heart, and soul. And as you go further and further in and on this journey, you experience a depth of ecstasy, passion, fulfillment, truth, energy, vitality, and pleasure and love like you've never actually even imagined. And this is the path that we're talking about, and one of the steps on it. So I want to start with this evolution of relationship. And there's 4 real stages that we've evolved through. And you're going to see right away as we go through this why we have problems with chemistry, why we have problems with attraction, why we have the friend zone, why we have the roommate zone. So let's go back to really caveman, cavewoman days. And the truth is, we were physically dependent on each other. We had to have relationship. We had to come into partnership. And that partnership was critical to our survival. If we think about, and this is, again, we're not going to get into every aspect of the differences between men and women, but right now, from a physical dependence standpoint, there was a time when women and their survival were completely dependent on having a man. And so it was appropriate for her survival, for her to twist herself into a pretzel, making sure that man stayed with her. And you're going to see that doesn't work, but it's part of our instinct. It's part of who we are as these quote unquote human animals. And so it was all about survival. And then we evolved. We didn't need each other to survive, but we'd come into a very defined set of roles. Because you had this body and this gender, you did this. And because you had this body and this gender, you did this. And those roles were, this is just how it is. And I have to do it this way. You should do it this way. There was no question. It was simply the way it was. And this is the realm of, for those of you that are old enough to remember, it is the realm of Beaver Cleaver and Mr. and Mrs. Cleaver that had that predefined role-based relationship. And again, it was still in a lot of ways fed by our instinct, but it wasn't truth. And then we went into rebellion and we demanded equality. And yes, we needed this. Like, revolution comes through rebellion, and our evolution always brings us closer to the truth. But this was a great stage, and it was a tough stage. And this is actually the stage that killed passion. And in it's this concept. So we went from, well, wait a second, I don't have to stand for this role. I don't have to be subservient. I don't need you. And so we went from, no, I'm not standing for this, which we needed to do. And we didn't actually know what we were looking for. It was a concept. It was just that I want to be equal. I'm not going to be subservient. And in a lot of ways, I'm talking about women here and that women's movement. And then there was also the calling for men to come into their sensitivity and to open their hearts more. And all of this was built out of a concept of how we should be and what was wrong. And we needed to address what was wrong. But we also tried to resist the way that it was. We took control in a way that was all about control rather than truth. In a way, it was about standing ground that didn't matter whether it felt good. It didn't matter whether it turned us on. We had to stake a claim. And so in that, then we had a whole new set of rules. Who asks who out, who pays, who does what, who does which chores. And there's an article, I believe it was in the New York Times several years ago. And it was, the title of it is effectively, and I may not have this exactly right, but do equal marriages have less sex? And as you read it, it's very interesting. And typically the answer was yes. And because we were living by rules rather than truth. And so the stage that we're in now, the time that we have to come into the ecstasy, the pleasure, the joy, the true happiness is what I call authentic relating. And it is the place where we get to choose. It is the place where we have our yes and we have our no. But in our yes and our no, we actually get to come back to what makes me happy. And as we get into this a little bit further, we'll find out that a lot of what we were up to didn't make us happy when we're talking about the rebellion and the equality stage. We weren't happy, we weren't fulfilled, but we were doing what we were supposed to do. And so now, this is a place where we get to come and interdepend on each other by choice. And what does that then begin to look like? There's three key things that I talk about in authentic relating. And that authentic relating creates the ecstatic, the ecstasy of living and loving in truth, in this real connection of you get to be who you are and I get to be who I am. And we're going to create a relationship where we're both more and our life is more, not that we're completed. That old idea of you complete me, that is outdated because it's not real. You are whole, but we get to experience more because we're together. And the three key things that I like to talk about is this idea of confidence. It takes confidence, no matter what gender we are. Confidence. Now, confidence may look different in a man than a woman, but there's a way that it's exactly the same as well. But the confidence and then the connection. How do we really come into true relating, ecstatic intimacy, and where we feel seen, heard, valued, respected, this connection that we don't have to hide in anymore. And then there's the chemistry and the spark and the passion and the juice and the fire. And so let's take the next step and specifically look at confidence. But there's also something that goes with that. When we're confident, when we are naturally ourselves, we become incredibly captivating. Like, who is that? And they stop. It's like, wait, they catch your attention. And I'm talking about men and women. There's a difference in the way that happens, but our attention is absolutely captivated. So we're going to talk about how do you come into your captivating presence, and it's incredibly attractive. But what is captivating? And we could talk about captivating in the sense of a speaker who you're riveted on them because of the presence and the way that they're bringing whatever they're talking about. You could be captivated by a date. It's the idea of moths to a flame, drawn in, felt, seen, experienced. And why does it matter if we're captivating? Well, you're already getting a sense that it's the captivating that captures the attention. And if we're wanting to get in bed with a lover, if we're wanting to have a new date, if we're wanting that passion of connection, heart and soul and sex, after years of marriage, we need to be noticeable. We need to shine our light. And so when we talk about why does it matter? Well, it matters because we want to fall in love with you. You don't want to be loved for a facade. You don't want to be loved for this thing that you think you're supposed to be. So let me be highly clear right now, crystal clear, that when we're talking about captivating, it is not putting on a show. What is most captivating is going to be you. And what we're about is bringing out that sexy, attractive, captivating nature, regardless of what your body looks like. And this is the place of ecstatic authenticity where you love being you, where it feels so good to be you that you don't want to be anything but you. And you're done twisting yourself into a pretzel, settling out, putting on that facade, trying to get love, trying to get attention. Like, no, next. And so it is that ecstatic authenticity, and trying to be anything but you backfires. We fall in love with the humanness, which means the messiness and the greatness. But if you try to put on that facade, they feel it. And I'm talking they men, they women. It's not attractive, it is not juicy, and it will always actually end up repelling the ones that you're most attracted to, because your authenticity, your realness will be massively compelling, massively captivating. And when you're not captivating, you can miss out on that connection with your soulmate. And you can definitely miss out on the great lovemaking. It literally is without captivating, without the ability to magnetize or command attention. We're talking friend and roommate zone. It's just the truth. It's not fun, but it's the truth. And being anything but you, here's the thing. You may think in this moment that being captivating, being massively attractive, that creates that spark is actually difficult. Not being captivating is way more difficult. It takes so much time and energy to try to be something that you are not. So this is about unraveling you to bring out the sexy, hot you, to bring out the most attractive and compelling you, and not waste a whole lot of energy. And when you are truly captivating, moths to a flame, this is one of the universal truths, laws of attraction, is that when you're shining your light, you magnetize miracles, the synchronicities, the quote unquote coincidences. Like, I often tell the men and women that I'm working with in my Soul Love program series, the singles, I work with singles and couples, but with the singles, I often say, you know what? I'm not a huge fan of online dating. Yes, if that's the best way that works for you, great. But one of the things that when you turn on your essence, when you activate your soul, when you come into your sexual essence and its magnetic ability, you'll all of a sudden go, oh my God, we had this crazy experience. You'll tell the story later of how you met your soulmate, and it will be the most unexpected ways. And sometimes it'll be like, we could not have orchestrated this. Something greater had its hand in our meeting. And that's what happens when you turn on this light and you bring out your essence. So when you're captivating, I've been talking about your light, you shine your light, and it's noticed. It is, I'm taken back to the When Harry Met Sally movie, not from necessarily the sexual standpoint, but I want what she's having, or I want to connect with that. And it's not about jumping in bed. It's about, and yes, there is some attraction, and we're not talking about it tonight. So if you're looking for, how do I get him, how do I get her in bed, and we're not talking about relationship, this is probably not the conversation for you. But if you're looking for, yes, I would love to be in bed with this person, and I want to know them, and I want to love at the deepest levels, now we're in the right place. And it's about turning on your light, being you. We're going to talk about, the next thing we're going to go into in this conversation is your sexual essence, and how do you embody it? And what does that do in terms of your sensuality, your sexuality, your attractiveness, your power? And this power, although we're not going to talk about it tonight, I work with it with the men and women in Activating Soul Love, because when you turn on this light, it is changing you and changing how you show up in the boardroom and the bedroom and everywhere in between. And even if you don't walk into the boardroom in your professional world, everything that you do will be impacted when you come into alignment with your sexual essence. When you turn your light on, I'm serious, boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between. I can think of a gentleman several years ago, and he came to me because he was going through a potential divorce, which turned into a divorce. But probably 6 weeks into working with me, he came back and he said, wait a second, I came here to work on my love life and my divorce. You didn't tell me my business was going to get better. Absolutely. When you stand, in this case, I'm talking about a gentleman, when you stand as the man that you are romantically, you stand as the man that you are professionally, and it will change everything. And this is the same thing for the feminine. Her professional world changes when she comes into her true light, because we attract both soulmates and those that support us, or clients, or new potential employers or partners. Like, they're drawn to you. We want to spend time with people that are turned on. And turned on doesn't mean just about sex, but it's turned on in life. And oh, by the way, when you are ecstatically authentic, like I said a little bit ago, confidence is a byproduct. When you know, not in an arrogant kind of way, but when you know that you're amazing, confidence is there. And you're not going to accept what doesn't work for you. And you're not going to settle. And you're going to know when to say yes, and you're going to know when to say no. And this is where self-doubt begins to fall away as well. It's genuine, it's real. And this is what we fall in love with. It is absolutely the truest power. We go into, we're not going to get to it tonight, but in my conscious relating retreat, we go into an entire exploration of masculine power and feminine power and how those are uniquely different. See, our society, and especially our corporate world, thinks of power as absolutely masculine, and it also thinks of power as power over something. That's not the kind of power I'm talking about. I'm talking about power with, power for, a way to influence, a way to create, a way to create change and shift. And I will tell you that what most of us don't understand about feminine power is that it is incredibly impactful and very, very different than masculine power. So it's an important part of coming into this. And when you come into this captivating nature, the walls come down, the love comes in, and the love comes out. And it is shared, and we come into that soul union, that soul mate kind of love. Shorthand, soul love, the path of soul love that we're really talking about. So, sexual essence. I want to dive now deep into this idea of what creates the spark, what creates the chemistry. And it is really the expression of our sexual essence. And so let's talk about what that is. Our sexual essence, let me pause for a second, as this gets juicy and I get all lit up about this. The sexual essence, it is a dance between the masculine and the feminine. And there are no expectations in this. We're going to take lots of different looks at how this masculine and feminine energy plays with each other. But it is magnetic, it is compelling, it is hot, it is fiery and juicy. And it is the combination of the two energies coming together. And it is not about gender, and it is not about orientation. Masculine and feminine energy exist in both of us, or in all of us. We have both energies in our bodies all the time. Most of us have one that is predominant and one that is more complementary or secondary. But the two energies live through us all the time, and they live between us. And we'll see this in attraction when we're meeting, we'll see it in our flirting, we'll see it in our lovemaking. But it doesn't have anything to do with who you're attracted to, because whatever your gender is, whatever your orientation is, you are still embodying masculine and feminine energy. And this is what we want to understand and take away all the misconceptions so that you have permission, honestly, to be who you are. Because there was a day back when I was that electrical engineer climbing that corporate ladder, I was not allowed to be feminine. I didn't want to be feminine. As a matter of fact, I had a whole lot of judgments about what it meant to be feminine. Being like the men, I prided myself on being masculine. And yet I didn't really understand what those two words meant. And so let's talk about these two words in a little bit more depth. The truth is, it's really simple science. And if we take two magnets, if we think about magnets, magnets have a positive end and they have a negative end. It's the charge on this magnet. And you don't have to understand all the science or the technology, but you've probably played with magnets at some point during your life. And those magnets, if you take the opposite ends, the positive end of one magnet and the negative end of another magnet, they come together and they stick. And it actually takes some force to pull them apart. And then where it gets fun, and I always used to like to play, was, well, now flip one of those magnets around and you bring the two negative ends or the two positive ends together. What do? They repel. Like that magnet will flip super fast to try to get away from the other magnet. And this is what's happening. That stage 3 of relationship that we talked about, the rebellion and the equality, it was about making men and women, and I'm talking heterosexual relationships right now, because this is one of the places where it gets the most messed up, of where the concepts of who men should be and who women should be and how we're supposed to connect and what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do and what I can't do. And it is truly where the neutralization, and even in some cases, it feels like we got neutered. Our sexual energy, like what happened to it? Where's that juice? Where's that passion? And so what we're really wanting to do in this exploration tonight, and you're going to get a chance in a few minutes to answer some questions that will help you get clear on what is your sexual essence. Now, when I do this in my programs and one-on-one with my clients, we're going through several more questions than we will tonight, but I want to give you 4 that are going to really help point you in the right direction. And so again, it is masculine's attracted to feminine, feminine's attracted to masculine. And when we put masculine with masculine, or we put feminine with feminine, they are going to repel. And it's where the sexuality and the polarity is going to go flat. And it's where we turn into the friend and the roommate zone. So part of the antidote to the friend and roommate zone is to really understand this polarity and how to ignite it, and how to maintain it, and how to create that spark. So let's look at the feminine. All shapes and sizes, and you've probably got a lot of concepts, a lot of beliefs about what the feminine looks like, whether you should be feminine. I had tons of judgments. The feminine was weak, she was pathetic, she was passive, she didn't have any power, she's a doormat. And being, the idea of, there's a way that the feminine has been labeled girly, and it's not, that's like a put down. And there's also all kinds of things that we really negatively call both men and women. And a lot of those negative judgments have some kind of female or feminine expression. And it's so wrong and invalidating. And we want to come into this true relationship with the feminine in all of her expressions, her sensuality, her flow, her radiance, her fluidness, her grace, her captivating nature. And we're going to talk more about these qualities in a couple minutes. The feminine, she's exquisitely radiant. And I say she in this moment, but I'm using that pronoun to describe feminine, not just women. Because again, men have feminine energy, women have masculine energy. The masculine, it has a potency, it has a presence, it has an assertiveness, it has a decisiveness and a directness, and it commands attention. The feminine tends to magnetize and draw in. The masculine tends to command that attention, not by domineering, but by being. And this is where it gets really powerful. In some of my workshops, I will ask the groups of men and women, and almost every one of the events, I haven't done a same-sex event probably, or all men or all women, I should say, event in probably 6 years, because what I've discovered is that men and women learn so much about each other and ourselves through this group dynamic. And so when I've got a group of men and women together, and I'll say, so ladies, when a man shows up standing in his presence, he knows who he is, he knows where he's going, he knows what he's about. There's that presence. Is he sexy? And they're all going, yeah, totally, he's so sexy. And then I go, okay, take that same man, standing tall as who he is, knowing what he's up to, where he's going, he's present, and then he opens his heart. And he'll tell you the truth, and he'll get vulnerable, and he'll bring that soft side. Is that sexy? Does his attractiveness go up or down? And they're all like, up. Like, that's the man, in this case, that has me melt. And so the idea of the nice guy or the new age sensitive guy, very often it is a man who is authentically masculine and who has been conditioned to say that being masculine isn't okay, There was a gentleman that came to one of my workshops. Oh God, this was probably, well, 10 years ago. And it was called Awakening Feminine Sexuality. And there were equal men and women in this particular workshop. But this gentleman, he was probably 27, maybe, I'm guessing, definitely in his 20s. And as we were talking about these qualities, he said, he raised his hand and he said, God, I grew up with a father who was an asshole. And I grew up around men that were jerks. And I did everything to model my mother and model all of the women in my life because I don't want anything to do with men. And I had to deal with the fact that I was a man, but I thought men were awful. And I didn't want to be one. And if I was going to be one, then I was going to embody those feminine qualities. And he said, thank you, because you've given me permission to see who I am, and that there's all of these parts of me that I have tried to deny and push away. And now I get to go find out who I really am. And I could tell that same story for women. We've had so much conditioning about who we're supposed to be, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. I don't care whether you're masculine or you're feminine at your essence, whether that sexual expression and that sexual essence comes through as that potent, penetrating force or that receptive and radiant force. What I care about is that you're you. Because when you find out who you are beyond all the expectations, beyond the hurts, beyond society's judgments, that's when love comes alive, and that's when passion gets hot, and that's where sex gets good. When you can give yourself permission to look underneath all the facades and the expectations and the shoulds and the rules and find out who this really is. Because man, when I got to set the woman in me free, so much better. And does she still go through her up-leveling of coming out and expressing herself more and letting more of herself be seen? Absolutely. Absolutely. And the feminine, as we're going to talk about in a minute, there's a place for us to surrender control. And it doesn't mean that we're not safe. There's a way that there's a safety and a surrender. And there's always more possibility in that surrender. We'll talk about it more. So magnetic attraction, the yin and the yang, these are the two energies that have been talked about for millennia, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. And you'll notice that in this yin-yang symbol, on the yang side, there's a fully enclosed circle of yin. On the yin side, there is a fully enclosed circle of yang. And it is much smaller in terms of volume of those two sides. It is the complementary or secondary energy is much smaller. So think of this example that I just used of the man standing in that presence and then opening his heart. Well, that was the yang allowing the yin to show through. As a woman standing in the feminine grace and radiance, of directness of the masculine can absolutely still come through, but it doesn't collapse on top. See, for me, I was a feminine being and I had this masculine mask on top. And then the first time I took a class like you're doing right now, and I found out about masculine and feminine, and then I put a feminine mask over top of my masculine mask. And then I was really messed up. It's not about putting on a mask. It's not about taking on a role. It's about taking away what was never true so that you can live and shine as who you are. And that's sexy. So these qualities, feminine and masculine, the feminine is incredibly flowing and receptive. Now notice as I go through these qualities, they may be things that push your buttons. They may be things that feel safe or not safe. They may be things that you're like, I don't want to be that. Or I want to be that, but I want to be the masculine too. Doesn't matter what your reactions are right now. Just notice them. Notice how you feel as we talk about these qualities. So the feminine, more flowing. It's a receptive energy. It's an expansive energy. It's actually, the feminine energy is actually boundless. And we're going to contrast that to the masculine in a moment. Actually, I'm going to do it right now, because here's the thing. Many of these energies, these qualities, they're not labels. They're qualities of expression. And so the feminine being expansive and boundless, the masculine energy is very focused and direct. The masculine energy, so one of the ways to start recognizing what's going on in your body, what energy am I in right now, is that the masculine energy will have this focused energy, and it's going to come off the body. It's going to penetrate forward. It's very results oriented. The feminine is much more experience and connection oriented. But that energy comes off the body. And that was how I knew as a feminine being when I first learned this. I'm like, oh, all the time, my energy's going like this, and it's pushing outward. And it felt really vulnerable, which is another quality of the feminine, to open and be receptive. And so there's a way that the feminine energy, it's as if it almost feels concave in the body. And it allows the energy to come in. And the truth is, these two energies, when we talk about the masculine and the feminine, or the yin and the yang penetrates, the yin receives. And they do fit together, regardless of our genitalia. We're talking energy right now, not physicality. And so there is a rigidness, an erectness to the masculine. There is a softness to the feminine. I often like to talk about, like, the masculine, when it is present, it is like a walking erection. It's got the shoulders, it's got the presence, and it's not about a sexual penis erection. It is about the presence. And that is sexy. And here's the thing, that presence, yes, it's attractive to women, but let's go back to the professional side of things again. Men who are authentically in their masculine, and not in the arrogant, not in the bully, not in the domineering, that concept of alpha, that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about the awakened, the sacred, the divine masculine and feminine. But the true present masculine, it's respected by men and women alike. And it's trustworthy. So there is a collaborative nature to the feminine, while there's a competitive nature to the masculine. Neither one is more right than the other. They're just different. And what we're wanting you to see, what I'm wanting you to see, is what is that authentic expression for you? There is wild. The feminine is wild. The masculine has self-discipline. And I remember a gentleman that called me many years ago. He was interested in potentially working with me. And he said, I want to, how did he say it? He's like, I am looking for a woman who is sexually uninhibited, free. She expresses herself. And I said, okay, great. Well, if you show up as a man who can attract her, then you can totally have that kind of woman. And then he went on a little bit further and he said, but I don't want a woman that's emotional. And I went, bing, bing, bing. Here's the problem. See, because the things that turn us on also drive us crazy. Like that focused attention of the masculine, like, God, he doesn't even know I'm here. But we love it when that focused attention is all on us. It drives us crazy and it makes us happy. The emotions, by the way, if you love a feminine woman, you've got to love and learn how to be with her emotions. And that's way, way, way easier than what you think it is. But it's an incredible part of her sexuality and her sensuality. So with that, you've got to come into alignment with your sexual essence. And so if we think about these qualities that we just talked about, the masculine and the feminine, where do you spend more of your time? Are you spending more of your time with your energy out here producing results, driving towards a goal? Is it disciplined? Is it decisive? Is it directive? Is it more rigid and solid? Or is it more flowing and radiant and embracing and creative and wild and flowing and free? Doesn't matter. And I can tell you that for some men, There's sometimes a difference for women, but for a lot of men, sometimes you show up differently in your professional world and your romantic world. So notice, is it different between those two worlds for you? Where do you spend your time? And that's the energy that you're living. That's the energy that you have been embodying. Just like me, as that engineer, I was driving and I was in my masculine almost all the time until I got to look at stuff like this and go, wait a second, I'm really feminine, but I don't know how to be. And I tried to put her away and put her in a box and put her in a closet and pretend she's not there. Because then I realized my authentic energy, and that's what we're gonna give you those questions here now. My authentic energy was absolutely feminine, and I was completely lost. And I repelled man after man after man. The ones I was attracted to were never attracted to me because they were masculine and so was I. So I was repelling them. And if I could attract one, then our roles are not our roles, but our energies typically got reversed. So I'd meet a man who was in his masculine, but I'd be so in my masculine that what men do because they want to make us happy is they go, okay, if you want to take the lead, if you want to make the plans, you want to do that, great, I'll let you, if that makes you happy. But then we're pissed off because he's not taking the lead. So what ends up happening is very often I'll find couples where the genuinely masculine man is embodying the feminine energy, and the genuinely feminine woman is embodying, she's living the masculine energy. We got to get the yin and yang realigned so that spark is reignited. And this can get worse over the years of marriage, but I can tell you, it would happen to me in the first months of dating. And I couldn't figure out why until I learned this. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And when you answer these 4 questions for you, I invite you to answer them. When you answer these 4 questions, I invite you to answer them from a place of you're totally safe. It will go your way. Like, it'll be a great date. The lovemaking will be exactly the way you want it. You're writing the script. So you can't get rejected. You can't get abandoned. You can't get judged. You're totally safe. So answer it from that place. It's like you've written the script. And so the first question is, if you got to pick your ideal lover, is your ideal lover physically larger than you or physically smaller than you? Second question, if you got to pick your ideal lover, is your ideal lover stronger than you, i.e. they can pick you up and move you across the bed, or are you stronger than your lover, i.e. you pick them up and move them across the bed? So are you stronger or are they stronger? Do they move you across the bed or do you move them across the bed? Third question, in a dating situation, and couples you should be dating, that's a should word, I don't like the word should, but your relationship will thrive when you date. So in a dating situation, would you prefer to be asked out, picked up, and taken to dinner? Or would you prefer to do the asking out, the picking up, and the taking to dinner? And remember, the date's gonna go great. Everybody's gonna be happy. Which one would you prefer? And then the fourth question, would you prefer, if you were in a hot, steamy kiss up against a wall, knowing we can always switch spots because that's really great to switch up the energy sometimes, but more times than not, is your authentic energy, your authentic desire, your authentic turn on to be the one against the wall in that hot, steamy kiss being kissed? Or is your authentic turn on to be the one facing the wall giving the kiss? And again, when I do this in the longer programs, we have several more questions, but these 4 are going to get you a really good indicator. And so if you wanted a lover who is physically larger than you, that's an indicator of feminine. If you wanted a lover who is physically smaller than you, that's an indicator of masculine. If you want to be the stronger one, you move them across the bed, that's masculine. If you want to be moved across the bed, that's feminine. If you want to be asked out, picked up, and taken to dinner, that's being courted, and that's feminine. If you'd prefer to do the courting, the asking out, the picking up, and the taking to dinner, that's masculine. And if you'd like to be the one up against that wall in the hot, steamy kiss, that's feminine. If you'd really like to be the one facing the wall, giving that kiss, that's masculine. And if you're like me, you might be shocked right now. And I know a ton of men that are shocked, and I know a ton of women that are shocked. And it might be exactly what you knew, but you just weren't sure. Doesn't matter. What's important here is that you, again, start to see the truth. And what I have the people in my program start to look at is, where's your authentic energy? Like what we just did through these questions. My authentic energy was absolutely feminine, but my lived energy was absolutely masculine. I had a huge gap. I was completely inauthentic, and it was neutralizing the chemistry, and it was repelling the men that I wanted. And it didn't work in my marriage. We were both electrical engineers getting MBAs and climbing that corporate ladder, and I was trying to compete with him and prove I could do everything he could do and more. And we never had sex. Well, we didn't never have sex, but it was few and far between. And so this is really, what's really important is that you want to find the truth and then figure out how to clear all the beliefs, all the judgments, all the hurts, if we go, all the baggage that is keeping you from living your authentic essence. And believe me, I had a ton of judgments. And I had a ton of judgments about the feminine. I had a ton of judgments about the masculine. And now what I can tell you is that men are my heroes, and they show up. I even had a gentleman today that helped me with a technical issue, somebody that may actually be listening tonight, who beautiful support for me. And I was so grateful. This is the kind of things that happen, is that we actually then we are inspired. We get to be who we truly are. And so the real thing, this brings to mind a mantra that it reminds me of what I say to women. And the mantra of the modern day woman, especially that stage 3 rebellion equality stage, is when someone offers help, her mantra is, no, I got it. While the mantra of the happy, sexual, pleasured woman, the one with the spark and the chemistry, is thank you, as she receives. And it doesn't mean we're weak. That's the judgment that we have. And these are the kinds of beliefs that it's so important that we get in and clear out so that you can actually live fully into your sexual essence. And there's the same kind of beliefs. For example, penetrating, assertive, directed, decisive. Like the masculine, I see so many men that think being assertive is a bad word. They don't want to be a jerk. So they be the nice guy, but then they end up being the nice guy that finishes last, and the friend and the roommate zone. And this is not just in dating, it's in relationship too. Like in our marriages, there are so many women, I wish you would just stand up and be more directive. And this isn't, when I get to talk about this in more depth, it doesn't mean disregarded. It doesn't mean that you don't, as a masculine being, you're not regarding the feminine's needs. Absolutely. But you're taking that in, and then you're moving the energy forward. There's so much more I want to tell you, and I'm going to move on. And we've really talked about, going deeper. And so now, like, what is it that you prefer in a partner? Do you prefer the masculine energy? Do you prefer the feminine energy? Usually it is the opposite. There is a small percentage. Now, not all men are masculine, not all women are feminine. But the majority of men have predominant masculine energy. The majority of women have predominant feminine energy. And there are some that are very neutral, but that's a small percentage. And so most of the time you're going to find that you prefer a partner who has the opposite energy to you. But notice, ask yourself, what do you prefer? And here's the thing, I tended to attract the passive guys because I was being masculine. I attracted men who were embodying their feminine because the polarity, the magnetism, that's how it works. And so notice, what have you attracted? And are you showing up as masculine and masculine or feminine and feminine? How are you showing up? And this is about getting real and deciding what do you actually want so that you can start to make the changes that will take you into the ecstasy, the pleasure, the passion, the chemistry, the spark that is hot and happy, juicy, real. And we're going to get into, in a couple of minutes, we're going to get into talking about the truth about soul sex, and we're going to talk about some secrets for women's orgasms. And what I want you to know, I want to look at this path again to really take in what we've just talked about in the masculine and feminine before we jump into the sexuality pieces. But sex expresses itself in so many different ways. And I can tell you that as a feminine woman, there were so many ways, even in my sexuality. And this continues to evolve for me. But those moments where you feel a deeper level of surrendering to the pleasure and opening into that feminine energy in bed and out is extraordinary. And this is a journey. It keeps unfolding. It is not a destination. Some of you have seen this path of soul love before, and I want to just take us through it again and listen with fresh ears. Listen from this sacred masculine, sacred feminine standpoint, and recognize where your confidence, where your connection, where your chemistry shows up or doesn't based on what we've been talking about. And so the path of soul love, again, it starts with you. We talked about ecstatic authenticity. It is who you're being. It is a unique expression of your soul. And it's your soul expressed with sacred masculine or sacred feminine. Like, I say sacred because these energies are to be treasured. Like, they are an expression. They're something to be honored and respected, and that they give us so much. And when you come into that truth, you have that confidence. The ecstatic intimacy is when we connect with each other and we unite heart to heart, body to body. The first part is how you're being, and how your being defines the quality of your relating. And then the quality of your relating and the quality of your being together, they define the quality of your uniting and coming into your body. And this is the chemistry, and this is the spark, and this is the union where in bed and out, it is ecstatic. This is an evolution. This is coming into the deepest, fullest expression of you. In the beingness, it is the union of light and shadow. It is the union of your beauty and your mess, your perfection and your imperfection. And it is into me I see. I look into me and see me, and I'm willing to accept me and honor me. I could use love, but it's really like the elements of love. How do I acknowledge who I am and begin to tell my own needs, wants, desires, turn-ons? Oh, by the way, if you don't know your turn-ons and you can't communicate them, you're not going to have soul sex. The spark's not going to be there. So you've got to know you. And you are sacred. You are to be treasured by you first. And we teach others how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. Then we come into the second step. It is the ecstatic intimacy, the union of self and other. And into me, you see, I am vulnerable. I am open enough to let you see into all of me, to see my soul. In sacred sexuality, one of the practices is that of eye gazing. The eyes being the windows to the soul. The eyes being the gateway to our essence. And the stillness of eye gazing can be incredibly ecstatic. And this is the place where we honor self and other as ecstatic. It is the place of uniting the humanness and the spirit, our divine nature and our human nature. And into me you are, we come into union. We are all sacred. It is the place where in this unfolding, if we come back to the self, the ecstatic authenticity, we become truly available for love. We become available for sexual pleasure. We become available to unite in that divine union. And that creates a space where we can actually have a soulmate relationship, a true soulmate relationship, a spiritual partnership. And this is also where, for those that are on a spiritual journey, it is what some call self-recognition, self-actualization, enlightenment, but it is divine union. And the problem is, it shows up in each step of this journey that we have these internal barriers of whether it's unworthiness or undeserving or unlovable, whether it is the self-judgment, the shaming. There's so much shame and guilt around our sexuality, let alone our bodies and whether we're enough or whether we're worthy. We've got to let go of that so that we can come into our fullest expression. When we get into relating, there's this idea of blame and victim and defense and I'm not enough and he did this and she didn't do that and we can't have this because of. And I watch so many relationships that don't have to go downhill. Either go downhill or choose to recover because you decided that you wanted something different. And so it is about letting go of the judgments and the expectations and the obligations and the mistrust that block, that make this connection impossible. And with that, when we get into the stage of the ecstasy, where we get into the sacred sexuality and the sacred sensuality, and I have people that come and I want to be a better lover. Like, okay, be a better you, be a better relator. And I guarantee you are going to be a better lover, but I can't make you a better lover until you stand up as who you are, until you honor the good, the bad, and the ugly in you, and you bring out all of your sexuality. Because too many of us hide parts of our sexuality and we can't fully express, and we will never have the kind of soul sex that we're talking about here without allowing the fullest the fullest acceptance of our own sensual and sexual self, as well as our heart space. So we've got to work through the limited consciousness. We have to remove all of the barriers to love and sex, intimacy, passion, ecstasy, fulfillment. Whoops. And it does start with the ecstatic authenticity of you, the ecstatic intimacy of a relationship, dating or relating. Doesn't matter. You step into step two, regardless of whether you're in a relationship or you're single, it's all about relating. From the first glance across the room to the moment that you do actually decide to step in bed together. And it is a journey where you keep evolving and you keep experiencing more and more. So if you want more ecstasy, then you have to have more intimacy. And to have more intimacy, you have to have more authenticity. And as you expand your authenticity and you shine your light and you become that captivating being, and even more captivating and even more captivating and even more alive. And then there's more relating and more depth and more intimacy. And then there's more ecstasy. And there's more honor, and there's more devotion, and there's more treasuring and cherishing and union and sacred sexuality and sacred sensuality. And it is all about coming into this masculine, feminine essence. It is about activating the soul love in you and being that so that you can love soul to soul. And you can live and love in ecstasy from the bedroom to the boardroom and everywhere in between. Soul love, soul sex. It's what we're made for. And it doesn't come easy. Actually, the steps are simple, but living it, we have so much mind chatter, so many hurts so many reasons that we feel like we can't. And you've got to get it in your cells. You've got to practice, 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 practice. And ideally, you're practicing with other conscious men and women, because there are so many men that want to embody this. There are so many women that want to embody this. And we're all off in our own worlds. And I see this all the time. Like, all the good ones are taken. No, they're not. And I can't recover this relationship, that thought of, can I really? It only takes one in a partnership to begin to change. And being in community with other conscious women and men makes a huge difference. And as you heal your heart, you help others and you give others permission to heal theirs. It heals this gender divide, the whole Me Too movement that's been so prominent in the last year. You coming into you and living your authentic masculine or your authentic feminine, your yin, your yang, heals that divide. And we learn the language of intimacy where true connection really happens. And we want to live the reality of the masculine and the feminine, how it walks, how it talks, how it stands, how it can be present and have an open heart, or be present and be directive, how it moves. Literally, I could tell you stories about voice and how after I got coached to shift my voice into a feminine voice. I'll tell this story super quick because this gentleman I was dating, I heard my coaches, I hadn't ever practiced voice with anyone. And I heard my coach's voice in my head about what to do with my voice. And so in the middle of this argument, I shifted my voice into my feminine. And literally he turned his head and he went, "What the hell did you just do? Because you are the most attractive to me you've been in months." And literally all I did was change my voice from masculine to feminine. So when I say get this in your cells, embody it, live it, I am completely serious. Live it, live it, live it. And the next step to living this path of soul love that we've been talking about, that you've begun paving the way to, is to ignite this fire of soul love in you. And in igniting it, we're bringing light on so many levels. We're shining a light onto your personal path of soul love so that you can see that path and how to begin walking it. At the same time, as you're shining a light on your personal path forward, it's really important to get totally clear on what's been getting in the way, just like we were talking about in training 1, clearing the path. Like we talked about it now, let's bring the rubber to the road, so to speak, and really get real about what's been getting in the way for you. Because whether it's a pothole or it's been a detour or a speed bump or a roadblock, once you can see it, once you recognize it and acknowledge it, now we have guidance on what needs to be done to clear the way. But we have to know what's there. So super important to get totally clear for you personally on what's been getting in the way. Then the next place we want to shine that light is on your heart's deepest desire. It is that light down the road that is drawing you forward. It is maybe what you've given up some hope on. We'll talk about hope in just a second. But it is the place that when you really allow yourself to tell the truth, it's what your heart and soul are calling for on this path of soul love. So important to reconnect with that and to not just feel the hope, but to create a knowing that you can have it. So even right now, if it's just a glimmer of hope that you might have a knowing, that's enough. But it is to now take that hope and expand it and deepen it so that you can have that knowing. And in that process, the next thing is to look right down at the next few steps on that path. Not where you're at 10 steps out, but the next couple of steps. What are the best steps that you can take towards creating this life of soul to soul love? So that is the igniting of soul love. It is the shining of the light on all of these aspects of what's in the way and where you're going and how to get there. And the way that I do that with people is through an igniting soul love session. And I say the way that I do that with people, you can certainly do that on your own. And you can have my expert advice looking specifically at your life, where you are right now and where you want to go, so that we can see. I can use the questions and the inquiry to help you get super clear on exactly what's been getting in the way for you, what's been sabotaging you, and help you bring out that deepest heart's desire and the hope and the knowing, so that you can reclaim and start living fully on this path of soul love. And so that's what we do in this session. We identify those blocks and the barriers. We get really clear on that vision, and then we can lay the roadmap, your personal path of soul love, with my intimacy brain, my love brain, and my soul totally dedicated to you and your path. These sessions are for singles, they're for couples, and they're for an individual in a coupleship. If your partner isn't willing or isn't ready to do this, it's okay. Because here's the great part. When one of you changes, the relationship has to change. So whether you're looking for a relationship or you're in one, this is for a session for you. It is an hour of that dedicated private time with me, where we create a sacred, safe space for you to see what needs to happen and to have my recommendations on that. When you register for that session, because you have invested your being in this Paving the Way to Soul Love program, you're going to use promo code PAVING when you register, and that's going to save you $100. So this session, this hour of private, dedicated time on you and your love life, is $97. And you get to schedule immediately. When you go to the link that I'm about to give you, ignitingsoullove.com, when you go to that link, you will then fill in your details, enter the promo code, click submit. You're going to be taken to a short profile form that gives me a little bit of insight into you, so that I can prepare and be as ready to go as deep as possible in your session. And then you're going to get a calendar link that takes you to my calendar, and you're going to schedule your session and have your appointment confirmed as soon as you register. So again, you're going to go to ignitingsoullove.com, fill in your details, click submit, schedule your session. When someone is ready to dive onto this path of soul love, I am absolutely committed to having you have the easiest, fastest, most direct route. If you want that support from me, then schedule your Igniting Soul Love session with me now. Let's continue with the truth of soul sex. One of the reasons that we talk about that masculine and feminine dynamic is so that you can experience the pleasures and the depths of soul sex and sacred sexuality and sacred sensuality. It is sex that is had because your soul is fully engaged. And there's a lot of confusion about this idea of sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality and soul sex. So I want to talk about what's the truth, because this is the kind of sex where your beings come together in a way that is the most exquisite, the most united. It is the place where I don't know where one body ends and the other begins. It is the place where heartgasms can happen. It is, yes, a place where orgasms get better and they get more frequent, but that's not the reason to have soul sex. It's not the reason to come into a practice of sacred sexuality or sacred sensuality, but it is one of the benefits. It is the place where we come into the fullest of connections with ourself, with the divine, with the beloved. It is passionate beyond your wildest dreams. I know that some people get concerned that, oh my God, if I do the sacred sexuality thing, that I can't have that like raw, just go for it sex. Wrong. You absolutely can. And that is the sacredness of soul sex actually makes, and we didn't get a chance to talk about like how for the feminine safety is incredibly important. We're actually going to talk about that in a moment when we talk about orgasm. But that container of the sacredness lets the feminine go even more wild. And it is that space that allows even more of the raw passion. It is slower and even stiller. I can tell you crazy experiences where I've had the best orgasms with absolute stillness. We get this idea that it's about the technique of the thrust and pump and how we're moving and where we're going and what the destination is. No, it is about the experience in every moment. And yes, some of the most powerful orgasms can happen in absolute stillness. And this is a radical shift of the mind. Emotions. We've talked about emotions in some of the other trainings, and emotions are the language of intimacy. And when we bring that, the sexuality brings out more of the emotion, and the emotion brings out more of the sexuality. Emotion is energy in motion. And so welcoming, there is a space that tears can actually, and I know guys don't react, but the truth is there's so much love and so much pleasure that we can have the most profound healing tears, the most loving tears, and we can have the most ecstatic laughter. Like orgasm can turn from this orgasmic contraction and expansion into the most profound laughter because we're so connected and so filled with our divine spirit. It's not what you think it is. You cannot, until you experience it, until you practice it, you can never know what it really is. And the truth is, just like soul love, it's not definable, but it is ecstatic and ordinary, or not ordinary, extraordinary. It is a place where heart and sex unite. This is another cosmic joke that we talk about in the fuller programs, the loving soul to soul and activating soul love. But like women tend to start with the heart and men tend to start with the sex. And what do we do about this cosmic joke? Well, in soul sex, they come together and we start to understand how that dynamic works and how it gets even more juicy when they come together, and nobody has to give up anything. It just gets better. You have these, did you feel that? Did you sense that? What was that? Like the phenomenal experiences. And sometimes maybe you've had one of those phenomenal experiences and you were embarrassed by it or ashamed by it or you were confused by it. The realm of sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality takes us to an entirely different plane of possibility in our ecstasy. And again, it is a body to body, heart to heart, soul to soul. We learn in sacred sexuality how to move energy in a way that amplifies the pleasure, that where we can use sexual energy to manifest in the world, to heal. And how the bodies have different polarities. Then we talk about bodies, and there's actually energy centers in the body, and how we unite with those centers and how we move the energy between them gives us the chance to, again, ignite that pleasure to higher and higher and higher levels, wordless and completely loud, because it feels so good. Women's orgasms. Again, I could talk for a long time on this, but I want to give you some key things. There is no right way, because women's orgasms can be incredibly elusive, and they have a ton to do with this masculine and feminine dynamic that we've been talking about tonight. When that dynamic isn't working, women's orgasms are not working. I can tell you that because I know it, I have lived it. That dynamic is so important, and there is no right way. Feeling safe. I mentioned that a couple of minutes ago. The feminine needs to feel safe. Now, if you're a feminine woman, it doesn't mean it's all his responsibility. You have to find your own safety and your own ecstatic authenticity, which allows you to set boundaries, which allows you to choose better partners. But the truth is, feeling safe matters. And when you feel safe as a woman, when she feels safe, then she can start to surrender. And you can't have an orgasm while you're in control. And what a lot of feminine women do is they try to hold on to control. And you can't hold on to control and have an orgasm. They are mutually exclusive. So this relationship with feeling safe and this relationship with control has everything to do with the power and the potential of a woman's orgasm. It is about surrendering, relaxing, coming into the body, opening. It is very much about variety. For the feminine, for a female body, the same thing over and over again doesn't work for her. So it's discovering the multiple ways to bring her to orgasm and multiple orgasm. And guys, this is totally off topic for tonight, but multiple is also in your realm of possibility. So just to let you know, it is all about presence. Presence, 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 presence. If women were speaking and I had a whole group of women behind me, what they would say is her partner's presence has everything to do with her ability to orgasm. It's a part of feeling safe as well. Do not hurry it. You cannot make it happen. If you're trying to make it happen, it will not happen. Stop trying and don't hurry it. The feminine, and again, we didn't talk about this aspect of the feminine tonight, and again, this plays out in so many areas, but she is timeless. And if you put a time constraint on her, it won't work. And don't chase it, because if you chase it, it's gone. You chase it, it's going the other direction. Stop, be present. One of the greatest things that you can often say to a woman, and I can tell you this one's worked for me lots of times, is it doesn't matter, just enjoy the pleasure. Nothing has to happen. And then all of a sudden something can happen because nothing has to happen. So take the goals out of the experience and be in the moment of being together. The biggest barrier to soul love and soul sex is the wall that you've erected. It is the wall of what you try to keep in and hide. It is the wall of what you try to keep out and protect yourself from. It is the wall that doesn't want to get hurt. It is the wall that has tried to put up the barriers and the checkpoints and all the things that you should do and the facades and the mirrors. And what you have to do to have soul love and soul sex is to take down that wall. And there's a lot of ways to take down that wall. But the critical thing is you have to take down that wall. And what I know is that so many people want the kind of relationship that we're talking about, want that soul sex, want that soul love. But there aren't a lot of people that will actually take the courage and the steps to open into that love and take down the walls and live in the vulnerability and live in the ecstasy, because the ecstasy only comes when you take down that wall. The wall traps it inside, and it's something you imagine instead of something you experience. And so no matter how scared you are, no matter how excited you are and scared, no matter what's happened in the past can be let go of. The past does not dictate the future. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can absolutely write a new ending. And so be aware of all the ways that you hold yourself back, all of the things that you think, believe, do, habits you have, the walls that you've erected around your heart, around your body, in front of you, that don't let you step into the fullest love, the fullest sex, the fullest pleasure. It's your birthright. And if you want soul love and soul sex, it begins at the end of your comfort zone, stepping out into something new, practicing. It wasn't comfortable the first time you rode a bike or drove a car or had sex, probably. But now they are all so comfortable and easy. And soul love and soul sex becomes an extraordinary experience when you're willing to turn and face what has been in the way and get real and step up and step out into you. Captivating, extraordinary, sexy, ecstatically authentic. The divine masculine, the divine feminine, that presence, that love, that spark, that chemistry. It's time, if you are here, it's time to step out. I hope that you will join me on this path of soul love. And if you are ready to light up your path of soul love from the inside out, igniting that soul love in you, singles, couples, and individual in relationship, these sessions are for you. It is a time where I dedicate an hour to your heart, your soul, your ecstasy, your intimacy, your joy in living and loving. Use promo code PAVING, all capital letters. Go to ignitingsoulLove.com and enter that promo code. The session with me will be $97 to have the next steps on your journey laid out for you clearly. You will have a confirmed appointment on my schedule as soon as you register and fill out that profile form. If that's your calling, if that's what your heart is saying right now, even if it's fluttering and nervousness, or, oh my God, those are powerful signals of how right this is for you. My commitment is to awaken every man and woman on the planet to this soul path of love, self-love, intimate love, divine love, so that every one of you may know the deepest of ecstasies, intimacies, pleasures, joys, connections that is available in these human bodies. This is my desire, my hope, my prayer for you. Thank you for the privilege of walking this path with you, of opening your eyes to your hearts, to your bodies, to your souls, to the intimate ecstasy, the soul love, and the soul sex that unites body, heart, and soul. I like to say, where heart and sex unite and spirit leads, the ecstasy explodes. The ecstasy is beyond your wildest dreams. I am Joanna Shakti. Thank you for being here. Namaste, which means the divine in me sees and acknowledges the divine in you. Many blessings.